I mean, come on, we all know Marvel is perfect and flawless. That was a joke. Don't slam me in the comments right off the bat. So I want to talk about the idea of Marvel regaining the rights to X-Men, because the idea that they should, I have seen crop up over and over and over again whenever I have talked about Fox's use of the X-Men as a property and their handling of it as a franchise. And a lot of people just seem to be chanting, let Marvel have X-Men back, let Marvel have X-Men back. And I don't actually think that's a good idea. And I say that not going, Fox has been perfect, because they haven't. Fox has screwed up a lot, and I've already got my video out there as to how I think they are already screwing up Dark Phoenix, and I expect that to suck. But that doesn't mean I want Marvel to take back X-Men. And there's a couple of different reasons for that. The first has to do, let's be fair, with what Fox has done right, which lately has been the spin-off material. And I'm going to focus mostly on Deadpool, Logan, because the simple fact is, both of those are movies that would not be made under the direct Marvel banner, because Marvel is owned by Disney. And while Disney is happy to go R-rated on the Netflix stuff, as far as stuff being released to movies, Marvel is still associated with the Disney brand. Disney would never have greenlit Deadpool. They never would have greenlit Logan. And whether or not you think those are amazing and flawless movies, they're not, though both of them are very, very good. The fact remains that we should have this kind of variety. We should have superhero movies that are catering to an explicitly adult audience, because if we don't have this kind of variety, then superhero movies are gonna die a lot sooner than is necessary. Because I love these movies, and I want this trend of superhero and comic book based films to last as long as it possibly can. And the quickest thing that'll kill it is stagnation. And what is gonna be stagnating is if they all seem the same. And an easy way for them all to seem the same is if they are all aiming at the same PG-13 demographic. By having some that are R-rated, we get to spread it out. We get to show that they are more than just this one thing. And another way for everything to see the same and have it start to stagnate is by having it all under the same studio. So beyond just the fact that I want to acknowledge the things that Fox has done and done right that Disney would not do, I also want to address just the broad reasons that even if that wasn't the case, even if Fox had done nothing but screw these movies up for the last 4 or 5 films, I still wouldn't want Marvel to regain the rights back. And here's why. Because at this point, the only benefit to Marvel having the rights back is to integrate the X-Men into the MCU. And I get that a lot of people want that, but is that actually a good idea? In my personal opinion, it really isn't. See, here's the thing about X-Men, and the thing that is a little bit weird about it. Even though the X-Men, and I'm talking about the comics now, even though the X-Men exist in the Marvel Universe and in the same space as Avengers and all this other stuff, they've kind of always been kept in their own bubble, and they work best that way. Really, in terms of the comic books, you can break down the vast majority of Marvel's universe into 3 categories: Avengers heroes, cosmic heroes, X-Men heroes. And for the most part, those 3 universes don't cross over very much. And when they do, they actually make a really big event out of it. It ends up being something like Infinity War, where the cosmic heroes come down to Earth. Or in terms of X-Men crossing over with the rest of the heroes, you get something like X-Men versus Avengers or House of M, these big, massive events. The company itself seems to acknowledge that the idea of everything that goes on in the X-Men, because that is a massive cast in and of itself, crossing over with the rest of the Marvel Universe is a big deal, because they are so often kept separate. Part of it is just the sheer volume of characters. The thing that's been ridiculous about Sony looking to create a whole cinematic universe around just Spider-Man is that, as awesome as Spider-Man is, and as great as his supporting cast is, it really all revolves around that one single character. That's not the case with the X-Men. It makes sense that the X-Men is resulting in spin-offs and new media and all this stuff, because the cast of mutant characters is absurdly huge. So part of it is, I'm just not honestly sure if there is room in one cinematic universe for the X-Men to actively be crossing over with Avengers. And I think if that Marvel were to reacquire the X-Men and they were to say that it's happening in the same universe, well, you kind of have to have them cross over because they're all occupying the same space. The comics don't really address the fact that, you know, the X-Men are dealing with these world-threatening, and comic book readers kind of accept it on a we won't bring it up if you won't basis. I'm not sure mainstream audiences will go for that if you do establish all these people are occupying the same space. And if you're thinking that you can just, well, just keep it separate for the most part. It's working with Guardians of the Galaxy and the cosmic stuff. That hasn't crossed over and been an issue with the Avengers stuff yet, but that's because there's an inherent natural barrier between the cosmic stuff and the rest of the MCU, which is that it's in space. It's physically very, very, very far away. So you actually have to go out of your way to bring them together as opposed to go out of your way to explain why they have to be kept separate, which would be the case with X-Men and the MCU. And then there's all the logistical ideas of trying to integrate the mutants into the MCU, because the whole thing that really drives home the point with mutants, X-Men, all of that, is that mutation is a fill-in. It is a substitute to represent any minority that is oppressed, undermined, ignored, or otherwise stepped on. I mean, where the heck have mutants been? We've had the MCU for almost a decade now, and there's been no mutants. To suddenly introduce them, you're gonna have to spend so much time just explaining why we've never brought this up before, and you're just gonna lose the entire, just, you know, civil rights oppressed group angle to the thing, which really is vital to the X-Men identity as a franchise. Not to every individual character, some of them couldn't give a crap, but that is really central to the whole thing. And if they haven't just been around and been something that people have had to deal with, then that analogy becomes all the more ham-fisted and awkward, if it even works at all. And as I said, trying to integrate all the X-Men characters into the MCU actively and have them continuously crossing over with Avengers characters on any kind of regular basis is going to be such a mess and a cluster. It would just make more sense to keep them more or less separate. But if you're keeping them more or less separate, why do they have to be in the same cinematic universe anyways? Just let Fox keep them. Now, could Fox be doing a better job? Absolutely. Like I said, the spin-off stuff is looking pretty good right now, but their main franchise, Apocalypse, I didn't hate it at the time I saw it, but I think less and less and less of it every time I think about that movie. And like I said, I've already done a video talking about why I think Dark Phoenix is doomed to failure. But I do ultimately think it is a good thing for X-Men as a franchise, for the MCU, and for superhero movies as an overall thing that these two things be kept separate and cross over. And like I said, that is more or less how it happens in the comics. And no, don't start citing me examples of, well, this time that the Punisher met Wolverine, and this time that Spider-Man fought alongside the guys. I understand that they do cross over, but it's not nearly with the same level of casualness that, you know, various Avengers characters cross over with each other, or various X-Men characters cross over with each other. They are very much kept separate, and when they meet up, it's a big deal. And while there would be some fun to be had in making a big deal out of having them all meet up, I just think it's ultimately going to, A, completely clutter and make the MCU almost unmanageable, and deprive us of a much more potentially unique voice as a contrast to what Marvel is doing with its characters. Because, like I said at the beginning, Marvel and Disney would not have made Deadpool, and they definitely would not have made Logan. And that's why, as much as I don't want them to make any more bad movies, I am happy that Fox still has this property, and I want them to keep trying. I don't want them to give up, and I want them to be sure that what they are doing is not just trying to do the same thing that Marvel does and they are doing their own thing. And so far, pass or fail, they have been doing that. So keep doing that. Give us the variety. Give us not everything that feels the same. And look, I understand for X-Men fans that Fox has botched some of these characters, some of these stories badly, and you are angry about that, and you believe that Marvel would do it right, and maybe they would if they'd had control of these things from the beginning. But at this point, the MCU is too far along, too well established. Would it have worked if Marvel had control of X-Men at the time they started the MCU? Maybe, but it's too late now. Ship sailed. And there are good things that have come out of that. So I say embrace it. Don't root for Fox to fail. Root for them to get it right. Because let's be honest, when they get it right, they get it really right. They just need to work on their, you know, win-to-loss ratio. So those are the reasons that I think the idea of Marvel regaining the movie rights to X-Men would not be a great thing. What are your thoughts on all this? Whatever they are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, check me out on Twitter at Council of Geeks. Give a listen to the Council of Geeks podcast, available on iTunes and Stitcher. I am also one half of the Punch Like a Girl podcast, also available on iTunes and Stitcher. And until next time, this council is adjourned.